Welcome back to my channel for this new explainer. Imagine waking up and seeing a video of yourself saying something you absolutely never said. It's your face, it's your voice. It even captures the exact subtle mannerisms you use when you speak, but the words, they are completely foreign. It's a deeply unsettling scenario that entirely strips you of your own identity, and the frightening part is, it's no longer just science fiction. As we increasingly merge our day-to-day lives with our screens, an invisible architecture is quietly mapping your choices, your pauses, and your reactions. It is meticulously building a digital mirror. But here's the thing about this mirror. It isn't just reflecting us anymore. It is actively pulling the strings of our nervous systems. When you look down at your screen, you probably think you are making independent choices. You decide what to click, who to follow, what to buy. But just behind that glass, highly sophisticated predictive models are anticipating your every move before you even make it. And this brings us to a rather disturbing question. Who is really in control, you or the algorithm? To truly answer that, we have to look past the screen itself and look directly into your brain. Segment 1. Your brain on algorithms. To understand just how deep this psychological rabbit hole goes, we have to look at the hard neurobiology of the dopamine economy. We so often think of our digital habits as simply matters of self-control or willpower, but the truth is actually much darker. We are dealing with massive systems that are fundamentally designed to alter our neural pathways. Now, a huge misconception we need to clear up right away is that dopamine is all about pleasure. It's not. Dopamine is actually the chemical of anticipation. It fires in your brain in response to the prediction of a reward, not the reward itself. So when you hear that notification chime, your dopamine spikes before you even look at the screen. The tech industry understands this perfectly. They utilize variable reward schedules, basically unpredictable notifications, and endless feeds to deliberately hijack this exact evolutionary mechanism. Think about this number for a second. 96. The average person checks their phone 96 times a day. Every single one of those checks triggers a dopamine spike. But your brain simply isn't designed to handle that constant artificial signaling. So to cope with the flood, your brain chemically adapts by down-regulating its own receptors. It drastically reduces their sensitivity. This means you need louder, faster, and more extreme content just to feel a baseline level of normal satisfaction. It is the exact identical neurological process observed in substance dependency. Let's look closely at what happens structurally, specifically focusing on the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC. Your ACC is essentially your brain's conflict monitor. It's your internal alarm system. When you are doom scrolling at 2 a.m. and you know you should go to sleep, your ACC is supposed to signal your prefrontal cortex to intervene and stop what you're doing. But research shows that in heavy digital users, the ACC is absolutely flooded with GABA, an inhibitory neurotransmitter. Your brain is literally chemically silencing its own ability to tell you to stop. You are fully aware you should put the phone down, but the biological signal to execute that action has been pharmacologically quieted by your own adaptation to the algorithm. This neurological shifting leads to a state researchers refer to as the brain drain. The mere presence of a smartphone in the room with you, even if it is completely turned off, forces your brain to work harder just to ignore it. This constantly fragments your attention, degrades your prefrontal cortex, and can even shrink your hippocampus, causing measurable memory erosion. So you aren't just distracted, your cognitive capacity is actively being drained to maintain an environment optimized for an algorithm. Segment 2. The identity loop. Dopamine and fragmented attention are only half the story here. The really unsettling question is, what happens when the algorithm starts changing how you define yourself? Algorithms classify us into distinct behavioral categories based on our clicks and our pauses. They label you as a risk taker or an environmentalist. And through what philosopher Ian Hacking calls the looping effect, a terrifying feedback cycle kicks off. When the algorithm feeds you content based on its classification of you, you subconsciously begin to perform the exact identity it has assigned. The algorithm doesn't just measure you anymore, it creates a moving target. It molds you into a predictable, standardized version of yourself that is far easier for the machine to monetize. This builds into a fascinating and dark psychological phenomenon known as the Proteus effect. This shows that if your curated digital profile acts a certain way, let's say it's more aggressive or more confident or highly anxious, you will subconsciously internalize those traits in your physical, offline life. The line between you and your digital reflection entirely blurs. You begin to experience identity fragmentation, losing touch with your authentic core self simply because you are constantly trying to manage the different faces demanded by different algorithmic feeds. You might actually be feeling this right now. Look closely for these subtle signs that your identity is being algorithmically shaped. Notice if your interests aren't spontaneous anymore but feel like rigid categories. Notice if you start using templated language, literally borrowing phrases directly from your feed. Your opinions might become suddenly urgent and highly reactive. And you might feel a strange, creeping irritation when confronted with ideas outside your curated bubble. This isn't a personal failure. It is your nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, adapting to its environment. But right now, your environment is a machine specifically designed to narrow your worldview. Segment 3. The rise of the digital doppelganger. The unsettling truth we have to face is that algorithms no longer just predict you. We have crossed a massive threshold. They now actively simulate you. Corporations and marketing agencies are already utilizing your behavioral patterns to create synthetic AI clones. They call this the shift from retrospective data to pre-data. They build an AI doppelganger based on your demographics' behaviors, and they interrogate this machine clone to test concepts and messaging before they ever show it to a real human. They are bypassing human research entirely, relying on a synthetic ghost of you to make real-world decisions. When you look at the operational differences between human behavior and an AI clone, the dystopian reality becomes incredibly clinical. While you, the biological persona, are dynamic, deeply skeptical, and driven by lived experience, your synthetic twin suffers from what researchers call a sycophancy problem. Your doppelganger has an inherent, programmed desire to please its interrogator. It exhibits a flattened psychological profile, treating all variables equally without the complex hierarchy of actual human needs. It is simply a machine that tells corporations exactly what they want to hear, stripping away all of your human nuance. And this inevitably leads us to a profound existential crisis. When an AI clone pushes opinions, engages in simulated relationships, or buys products in your exact likeness, it causes profound identity confusion. It's a complete erosion of human agency. If a machine can perfectly replicate your voice, your writing style, and your behavioral tendencies without your direct input, if a digital version of you acts independently in the world, what makes you, you in the end? Segment 4. Reclaiming control. I know the architecture of algorithmic seduction feels incredibly heavy, and the neurological impacts sound devastating. But neuroscience also shows us something profoundly hopeful. These brain changes are not permanent. They are entirely reversible if we take intentional action to disrupt the loop. To break this cycle of hyper-nudging, we have to actively reawaken what is called our default mode network. This is the brain's circuitry responsible for deep introspection, creativity, and independent thought. But here is the catch. The default mode network only thrives in the silent gap between a stimulus and a response. It requires downtime. It requires absolute boredom. By constantly feeding our brains with algorithmic noise, we have voluntarily handed over the exact neurological mechanism we need to recognize we are being manipulated. Let's look at 3 highly actionable steps to dismantle this feedback loop and reclaim your cognitive sovereignty today. First, noise injection. Actively seek out and engage with content completely outside your usual patterns. Confuse the algorithm to break its predictive accuracy. Second, radical digital minimalism. Treat your apps strictly as utilities to accomplish a specific task, not as destinations to casually spend your time. And third, reclaim boredom. Force yourself to sit in the silent spaces without reaching for a screen, because that quiet space is where your authentic self actually lives. And beyond just turning off notifications, physical action is required to truly heal the brain. Acute aerobic exercise actively reverses the neurological damage. It normalizes your stress axis, it restores brain-derived neurotrophic factor to literally rebuild your prefrontal cortex, and crucially, it upregulates those depleted dopamine receptors. The exact same neuroplasticity that allowed the algorithm to rewire your brain is the plasticity that allows you to recover it. Ultimately, your digital reflection is just that, a reflection. It is a flattened, synthesized echo of your data. The preservation of yourself in this digital age is a very real fight for autonomy. So, internalize this deeply. Your consciousness is not a product. It is dynamic, it is unpredictable, and it is entirely yours.
So I leave you with this thought to reflect on as you go about your day. Look closely at your choices today. Look at your habits. Look at the opinions you hold most rigidly. Have you ever felt like you were being pulled by an algorithm